bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
All right. Yeah. Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. Today is Tuesday, November 17th. 321 days into the new year, 44 days left for KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the planet. I'm your oh-so-humble host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? Sitting here tweeting right before the show, and I look up at the atomic clock, and I had 5 seconds to fire things up. Friggin' Michael Anderson. Love that guy. All right. Let's do this. Tonight, we have very special guest, Marie D. Jones, right here in the house. We have a lot to talk about tonight. What a show last night with Danny and Costa. Just an amazing show. So this is officially Edumacation Week here. Edumacation Week here on Fade to Black. Diplomas. Jimmy's School of Education. Diplomas to be distributed Thursday night. Yeah, it's hot this week. It's just hot. Just emotional. It's just hot. Tomorrow night, Carrie Cassidy, Mike Barra, right here for a roundtable discussion on ISIS and Paris, France. It's going to get hotter tomorrow night, and it's great that I get, two minds like Barra and Cassidy to agree to come on the show and, sit on each side of myself with me in the middle and trying to flush this craziness out that is our world. And we will be doing that tomorrow night. We're going to continue that tonight with Marie D. Jones. And let's just see where the conversation takes us tonight. She's very smart. And I look to her wisdom tonight, and it's going to be a brilliant conversation. Really looking forward to it. And now next week, it's a very, 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 very big week. I think we're going to bring Costa back and another guest. So we're going to bring Costa back next week because last night, it is what it is right now over in Paris. And, and this is a show that, everybody knows that it's just an open-ended conversation. And last night's show was planned weeks in advance. And, then Paris happens on Friday, that tragedy over there. And so to allow, and thank you, Costa, for doing that last night, and I'm sure you're listening right now, to sit and listen to Danny Sheehan and his wisdom. That's where the show went last night. And so we're going to bring Costa back. We'll bring him back next week. Also next week, we have Graham Hancock. Yes, Graham Hancock will be next Wednesday night, Thanksgiving Eve. he's going to spend it here with you Fadernauts. And so there you go. And then we have one other guest that I'm not ready to announce yet, but it is a huge week next week, and it's going to be great. Okay, and there you go. There's so much. What's going on over in Paris? It is just so fluid, and the news breaking all over the place today. Of course, you had the cancellation of the soccer match over in Germany today, and the. It's funny how the news can't really come to grips on things, but I started getting a text and a couple of phone calls today about this ambulance, and I was like, okay, and I've got to go. Things are just busy here. And then I've got to go and put people on and look at and check into these different reports. And, of course, none of that panned out, thankfully. That there were suitcases and there was something else at a train station, and thank goodness that all of it just turned out to be false reports or what have you. But that canceled. But then the soccer match between France and England at Wembley, when that happened, I think the English won. The English win? Did they take that 2-0? Somebody took it 2-0. And I saw that. So, and now they're looking for another suspect. So now there's two guys on the loose. And I'll cover all of this in the news coming up here shortly. And yeah, it's just absolutely nuts. It's crazy. And there's so much more that's going on with Russia and of course France and Italy and Germany chimed in today too. And there were raids in Germany. It's just a crazy situation. If I have a comment on any of this, what any terrorist group, and certainly what ISIS would love, or any terrorist group, is to get infighting going on, to cause confusion, to scare people, and that's the very definition of terrorism, and to get that action going on. And I got to say, that plan ain't working. And if you think you're going to scare Putin or you're going to scare the French people, Obama's another story. That's a whole nother conversation. But the conspiratorial idea behind something like that is just stupid, because that ain't going to work. That's not going to happen. I was talking to somebody today. They were like, man, all they want is to get boots on the ground. Kind of what Danny Sheehan was saying yesterday. And that was pretty funny to hear people talking about that today with me. Was that, they're trying to entice, trying to get us into a ground war. You know what? They're going to have the whole world in a ground war. That's the thing. That's the problem. And the way that our military tends to have been running, since Vietnam, this precision bombing and no collateral damage, and they don't want to hurt anybody but the bad guy. It's not really a way to fight a war. You shouldn't fight a war at all. I mean, we shouldn't be doing it. It's shameful. But the bad guys want that. So, but I'm telling you right now, ISIS, the mistake you're making, Putin don't care about collateral damage. He did, and right now, neither do the French. You just need to, and at some point, if we and other nations cave because you've just poked a stick into a hornet's nest long enough, it's not going to end well. And your little righteous state that you formed over there because we screwed up is going to be no more. Could have been a different story. And that kind of ideology and fundamentalism, it just doesn't fly with the rest of the world. You're going against the grain of your very own religion and everybody else out there that is sensible. So anyway, enough of that. We'll be talking about that all night. Let's get this show cracking. Yeah, that's my commentary, if I do have a commentary. Go to jimmychurchradio.com, Alien Snowfest. It will be February 5th through the 7th in Big Bear. The links are right there, jimmychurchradio.com. Go and click. Thank you to everybody that has purchased tickets in advance. It just, I know we're going to have a nice warm gathering up there of friends. It's going to be awesome. Alien Snowfest. Oh, I do want to, I'm going to make an announcement here. Rita and I started a cleanse today. Okay? All right? It's going to go on for the next 3 or 4 days. And yeah. So let's see. I'm excited about it. And I'm excited about the company that is involved. More on this on Monday. We got to get through the weekend. And and the preparation and how we did it and stuff is pretty interesting. Very simple. It's not a bunch of complicated ingredients or any of that. It's just a couple of tea bags. That's it. That's boiled. And then, obviously diluted into big what's the word I'm looking for? Pitcher. We got a couple of pitchers of this in the refrigerator. So, it's 8 ounces at night before bed and another 8 ounce in the morning when you wake up. And it's 4 days. 4 days. So excited about it. And Stallone, I hear you. And those are the warnings. So that's why, well, anyway, I won't go into any more details, but we'll have a full report on Monday morning. If you guys want to tweet Ree right now, she did her first she stepped up to the plate. And so there you go. She's in the next office if you guys want to check in. She's in the office next door. This is Fade to Black. It is Edumacation Week. Edumacation. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Bespoke Radio for the Masses tonight. Marie D. Jones right here on Fade to Black. Bespoke Radio for the Masses on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. I'll be back with all that news that you know nothing about and also some other fun stuff right after this short break. Stay with us.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I gotta tell you, it was a relief. National Tax Experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. It doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil 3-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444. Or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Chase Kletsky with Fate Magazine Radio, and you're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station, where the Fade or Nots rock.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, Fade to Black. Let's get this show crack-a-lackin'. Marie D. Jones is with us tonight. What a great week we have this week. Last night, Danny Sheehan and Costa McCreas. Tonight, Marie D. Jones. Tomorrow night, Mike Barrett, Kara Cassidy. Thursday night's going to be on fire, literally. Today, Danny DeVito is 71 years old. And, you know, I think about Danny and I go right back to, well, I think of two things. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, his first film. Still totally epic. And then Get Shorty. Get Shorty. DeVito was like the sleeper guy in Get Shorty. He was absolutely hilarious. And Marty Scorsese is 73 today. Also, Gordon Lightfoot is 77. Talked about Gordon last week, remember? The Edmund Fitzgerald. Our dead guy's birthday today. Moment of silence. I posted this on Facebook earlier, and wow, man, just brought back memories. Jeff Buckley, 1966 to 1997, died at the age of 30. And after a decade as being a session guitarist right here in Los Angeles, Beckley took off to New York and got a following by playing cover songs in Manhattan's East Village. And then he signed with Columbia and recorded Grace, his only album, by the way. And he recorded that in 1994. And, you know, most critics out there and audio lovers consider that, you know, one of the great albums in modern times. Rolling Stone does consider him one of the greatest singers of all time. Then he moves to Memphis to start and finish his second album. And on May 29th, 1997, while awaiting the arrival of his band from New York, he drowned during this tripped-out, spontaneous evening swim in the Mississippi River. He was fully clothed. Apparently, he had done this a few times. He had his guitar tech, or he had a friend with him, a roadie guitar tech, that was on the shore, that had a guitar and a radio. And Buckley takes off swimming, fully clothed, singing A Whole Lot of Love, Led Zeppelin. And then the guitar tech went, and this is from memory, so if I've got it wrong, correct me. But I think he moved like the radio on shore, adjusted the guitar. You know, it was like going to get wet or something. And then he looks up and Buckley's gone. And he was caught in the wake of a passing boat, apparently. He just was never found. His body was found 4 days later on June 4th, 6 days later on June 4th. But the autopsy showed no signs of drugs or alcohol in his system. He just went swimming. It was ruled an accidental drowning. With his cover of Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah, 10 years after his death, he got a #1 single on Billboard's Hot Digital Songs in March 2008, and it also reached #2 on the UK's single chart that December. And his rendition of Hallelujah, I posted it today. I didn't even realize it. I went and checked it out. 65 million views on YouTube. And truly a gift. And we miss you, Jeff, every single day. Talented guy. One of the best. And it was a total accident. All right. So, okay. Man, just bums me out. Does it bum me out? We need to be happy. We need to be happy and positive. I like Jeff Buckley. I liked him a lot. And there you go. You can email throughout the show, Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. You can follow me on Twitter at jchurchradio. You know what I want to start doing? I want to start doing something a little bit different. I want to start having like Twitter contests, actual contests on Twitter. And I was thinking about that today, just trying to figure out some cool twist to it, because you guys are so great on Twitter. You guys hang out. And, thousands of tweets every single night. You need to be rewarded. So I've got to figure out a way to tie that in. Plus, we are getting backed up on books and DVDs. We're getting really backed up. All right. Let's see. Where am I? Let's get to it. On this day in history in 1973, Nixon uttered those famous words to reporters at Walt Disney World in Orlando, Florida, when he said, "I am not a crook. I am not a crook." Fate or fact, vending machines kill 4 times as many people as sharks per year. That is a fate or fact. All right, all the news that you know nothing about. Today, Russia said it, finally, that the Russian passenger jet that was brought down by a bomb, it was estimated to contain a 1 kilogram, 2.2 pound bomb. The Russian Federal Security Service announced everything today, and the Russian government is offering a $50 million reward for information about those who brought it down. Not 50 million rubles, 50 million dash. 50 million ducks quacking in the pond. The government had initially resisted the theory that the plane fell victim to terrorism, perhaps in retaliation for Russia's support of the government of Bashar al-Assad in Syria. But today Putin said, and I'm quoting, "We remember everything and everyone." He went on to say, "We will search wherever they may be hiding. We will find them anywhere on the planet and punish them," end quote. And this is a dude that swims with tigers. Yeah. Serious plans for explosions forced the evacuation of a stadium in Hanover, Germany today, and canceling the Netherlands-Germany friendly soccer match. And that was according to the police chief for Germany's Lower Saxony region. They ended up finding nothing. I had said at the top of the show there were reports of an ambulance or a truck disguised as an ambulance with explosives on board. It went all over Facebook and it was all over the news, Twitter. And those reports turned out to be false. The leads came through France. And everybody over there, every country right now, for the first time, is communicating. Russian military joined French warplanes today as well as the two nations struck back at ISIS. 10 French fighter jets carried out new airstrikes on ISIS targets in Syria, and 12 Russian long-range bombers, including the supersonic Tu-22M backfire bomber, launched cruise missiles inside of Raqqa. Cruise missiles were also fired today from the Caspian Sea, from the Russian Navy missile boats, and Putin ordered the Russian missile cruiser Moskva, means Moscow, Moskva, currently in the Mediterranean, to start cooperating with the French military on operations in Syria. Putin said a French aircraft carrier task force is to approach the Moskva, and that the Moskva is to cooperate with them as allies. Interesting. Yeah, man, you start that fire, you got to find a way to put it out there, ISIS, and it ain't going to happen anytime soon. The U.S. State Department has signed off on a deal to sell $1.29 billion worth of smart bombs to Saudi Arabia. What was Danny Sheehan talking about yesterday? That's right. According to the Pentagon, the 22,000 bombs are to be used in the Saudis' military campaigns in Yemen and Syria. The Pentagon's Defense Security Cooperation Agency, in charge of overseeing foreign arms sales, said that in a statement that the deal with the Saudis has been approved. The U.S. Congress still has 30 days to block the deal, but is unlikely to do so. The agency said that the sale would keep the Saudi Air Force from running out of weapons as well as provide sufficient weapon stocks for military action in Syria. In October, the United States government approved an $11 billion sale to Saudi Arabia for up to 4 Lockheed Martin warships, along with weapons, training, and logistics support. In September, Washington approved a $5.4 billion sale of 600 advanced Patriot missiles to Saudi Arabia. SpaceX, back in the news. SpaceX is positioned to win a Pentagon contract to launch a global positioning satellite after the ULA, the United Launch Alliance, the only other certified bidder and sole supplier of launches until now, bowed out of the bidding due to the terms of the contract. ULA, a 50-50 joint venture between weapons giants Lockheed Martin and Boeing, told the Air Force yesterday that it could no longer bid for the 2018 mission to launch the Pentagon's GPS-3 satellite because, among other issues, Congress is in the process of phasing out Russian-made engines that powered the ULA's Atlas V rocket. Hacktivist group Anonymous, following up on everything that they said that they were going to do, talking about it yesterday on the show, has reported that more than 5,500 Twitter accounts belonging to the Islamic State now have been taken down since yesterday. It comes after a collective declared a total war on the militant group following the Paris attacks. Tweeting from its Operation Paris account, Anonymous stated, and this was the tweet, and I'm quoting, "We report that more than 5,500 Twitter accounts of ISIS are down." That's hashtag OpParis, hashtag Anonymous, and hashtag Expect Us. Oh, man. You know, let me look at the studio clock. I got enough time to get this in. Huawei. How do you guys say that? I've always wondered. I've always looked at it and went, Howie. Is it Huawei? You know, the phone maker. They recently showed off its new batteries that charge up to 50% within a few minutes. The next-gen quick charging technology is claimed to have 10 times faster charging speed than normal batteries. Developed by the Watt Lab, the new lithium-ion batteries were unveiled at the 56th Battery Symposium held from the 11th to the 13th of November in Nagoya, Japan. Of course, the company did not say when we can buy them. We have lower your expectations of fast charging speeds, but apparently they're supposed to do it like now. In other words, my battery's already charged. It charged before I put it on the charger. They're that fast, but we can't get them. This is Fade to Black. When I come back, Marie D. Jones right here. It's going to be a great broadcast tonight. Bespoke radio for the masses on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. I'm Jimmy Church. Back right after this.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station.
Imagine no longer being tied down to your computer, but having the freedom to take live talk radio with you anywhere you go. TalkStream Live introduces our first ever iPhone application. The talk shows you follow now follow you, and your iPhone is now the fastest and easiest way to stay connected to the best talk radio on the internet. Let TalkStream Live transform the way you listen to radio. Listen to live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Mobile talk radio from TalkStream Live. Now available in the iTunes App Store.
This is Toby Kebbell.
You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier, and this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. We're of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier, and I'm Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers, and you're listening to Jimmy Church. The Revolution.
All right, you Fadernauts. Studio Dome has done it once again. A new Studio Dome Fadernaut special. Introducing the Studio Dome Boom Box Bluetooth speaker. It's got a rear-firing bass film subwoofer and dual 52mm main speakers. You'll never listen to your tablet or cell phone speakers again. Just click on the Studio Dome banner, use the promo code Jimmy, and you'll get the SBB for $49 and free shipping. And get a Buddy 4-port USB charger for free. That's a $19.99 value right there. And they'll throw in a Buddy in the box. It's the best deal on the net anywhere. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner, enter the promo code Jimmy. Go Beckley Teppy.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
All right, welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Bespoke Radio for the masses. Tonight, Marie D. Jones, right here in the house. She's in the batter's box. You can relax. The call-in number is 323-825-5045. You can also Skype in Fade to Black 14. I want to remind everybody, tomorrow night, Carrie Cassidy and Mike Barra right here tomorrow night for a roundtable discussion on all things ISIS and Paris. And it's going to be one of those shows. And we'll be taking your phone calls, too, as well. Marie D. Jones, a best-selling author. Her current book is Mind Wars, The History of Mind Control, Surveillance, and Social Engineering. She also wrote a book, when she was on with us last time, this book is From the Future, a journey through portals, relativity, wormholes, and other adventures in time travel, and many other titles, both solo and with her co-author, Larry Flaxman. She is considered an authority on paranormal, UFOs, cutting-edge science, noetics, consciousness, ancient mysteries, and conspiracies, and she has spent over 15 years as a trained field investigator for MUFON in San Diego and Los Angeles. She's a former radio show host for Parafringe and Dreamland and has been interviewed on over 2,000 broadcasts. Marie has published hundreds of articles for Paranormal Brain Trust, Intrepid Magazine, New Dawn Magazine, Paranormal Underground, Paranoia Magazine, and Fate Magazine. She's also appeared on History Channel's Nostradamus Effect and Ancient Aliens, and of course her website is www.mariedjones.com. I would like to welcome back to Fade to Black fellow Fadernaut, Marie D. Jones. Marie, how are you this evening?
I am good. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, couldn't wait.
Took us a while, huh?
Well, you know, the thing is, Marie, it takes a tragic event like this over in Paris for me to, go through my brain and go, we need the best this week. We need to have level heads on the show. And it's got to be Marie. And, it's sad, but you're here and welcome back.
I am excited. Thank you. But level heads, really. Well, nobody's ever called me that before.
See, the thing is, when we were looking at this week, I hosted Coast to Coast this past Friday.
Yeah.
And hosting that show that night, it was a lesson for me to learn when you're broadcasting like that on a show like that on a day like that.
Yeah. Oh wow.
Yeah. It was it was an eye opener, and then I realized that it's not in a situation like that. My opinion matters absolutely none. My opinion. And if I would have gone on the air and said how I felt or anything, I would have offended half of the people, and then the other half of the audience would have been cool. Or maybe you could divide it into 3 or 4 different subgroups.
Yeah, exactly.
But it wouldn't have achieved anything. You know what I mean?
No, I agree with you. Yeah, I think people say, "Oh, was it too soon?" And yeah, sometimes it is. Sometimes we need to take a little distance before we approach a subject. We have a little bit better perspective. Maybe we know a little bit more, so we can form a much better opinion about what we think is going on. But no, I think that would have been very difficult for me to do if I were a radio host.
Could you? Yeah, and I thought about, let me finish my thought. And so I wanted to just bring on guests this week that I wanted to engage with them instead of putting the weight on my shoulders or trying to engage my opinion, because my opinion doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to have people on with me that I could talk with sensibly, with a level head that I could learn from, and
thank you,
and the audience too. So, now, but when you go back and you reflect for a second, Marie, and you look at 9/11 and you think about not only that day but the week after, like David Letterman chose to go on the air, and all of those broadcasters had to go on and continue to do their shows. Both on radio and television. You had to do the broadcast news. The broadcast news was 24-channel news cycle, for, I don't know, it was probably almost a month. But
exactly, yeah.
And how those broadcasters and journalists managed to get through it. And, put yourself...
That's their job, I guess, I mean, if you think about it, 99% of the people had to go to work the next day, whether they wanted to or not. And, that includes the media. And I certainly think, too, that some of like David Letterman, that levity helped so many people. I mean, you think about, well, how can anybody laugh or find humor after something like that? Well, it's a coping mechanism, and it works for a lot of people. And I think that was really a hard decision for him, and I think it was the right one. But I remember being so sucked into the news that I felt like I was going to kill myself. And at some point, it's like, I'm not doing this anymore. And I was really heavily engaged at that time in alternative news and looking at what other people were saying. And I remember that the whole year after that just being so traumatizing. So with this event, I have a much more detached, discerning perspective, because I've learned a lot over the years. I've learned, to not always take everything at face value, to wait until we get good information. You'll see something happen in the world, and immediately the media is reporting misinformation. They're reporting names and figures and statistics that are not true because they don't want to wait. They want to get a jump on that story.
Right.
But I've almost come to realize that we'll get more truth, if we ever get truth about anything, really, if we wait a little bit. And yet it's human nature to want to just talk about it, to emote and cope and deal with it and rant and rave and everything.
Yeah, you bring up a really, really good point in that on Friday, I only had the available news reports. Now, I'm at Coast. I've got access to everything, everybody.
Right.
And so you vet, you report, you come up with 2 sources or 3 before you speak. And during the show, before the show, and at the end of the show, the numbers were 158 people were killed, and There were a mass amount of gunmen loose in France, and nobody knew what was going on. So that's what I reported, and then we find out the next day that it wasn't 158; it was 129. They somehow got all of those numbers screwed up. And then all of them except for one, apparently, maybe now two, but this is what we know today, had all blown themselves up or were shot. And so they weren't on the loose. And when you're reporting this kind of stuff out there, and I'm talking about the mass media, and I'm doing it too because I only have access to that same information. But I'm relaying that, and it's bad news. Gunmen on the loose, terrorists on the loose, bombs on the loose. And when it turned out to actually, not be the case, or at least not that extreme. And it wasn't that I was reporting wrong facts. I was only reporting the
what
facts.
You were hearing. You were feeding the information that was being fed to you. These news feeds come in. I tend to sometimes watch on Twitter where you have people literally reporting from the scene who are there witnessing it, and you just get this sort of raw live feed coming in. But in the heat of the moment, people misjudge and they get so caught up in what's going on. And again, it's total normal human behavior that they catastrophize or they over-exaggerate. I'm not saying that what happened wasn't, just unbelievably traumatizing, but yeah, I think I looked at 10 different news sources and had 10 different numbers of the people dead, different names and locations of where it was happening. And I'm feeling bad. I'm an empath. I'm feeling bad for people who had family there looking at this thinking, oh my God, my son is there. Or, this is where my daughter works. And then you find out the next day, it happened two streets down. And I think it's just that heat of the moment reporting that we just as human beings get so caught up in what's going on that we don't wait for the facts. We just spew,
Well, and here's another example. In your new book, The History of Mind Control, which says it all right there, and the subtitle, Surveillance and Social Engineering, the mass media, especially after this events, because there was other terrorist acts that also went around the world, and it wasn't just in Paris on Friday. We had stuff on Thursday, but and other stuff today. There was something else that happened in Nigeria today. I was getting the reports on that right before the show. 30 more people.
Exactly. Yeah.
That the mass media has the ability, if for that mind control that we're talking about, they could very easily. After what happened in Paris, got everybody completely fired up around the world by saying the wrong things. And the next thing you know, nuclear weapons are flying around.
Or an active war. The war has been declared. And, yeah, you're right. And I think sometimes, we have to face the truth that the media, these different media outlets want to be the first to get that information out. They want that award, it's like an Oscar for the media, to be the first ones to be able to say, hey, this is what happened.
Yeah,
so they'll just put a bunch of crap information out there hoping that maybe they got it right, as long as they're the first ones,
Ed from the Fort tweeted 9 seconds before you said that. I can only say that because it says it here in front of me. He tweeted, media people are so desperate to be first with the info that they spew any information they hear without checking the details.
How funny. We're psychic, he and I.
But that's, and I am so cautious about that very detail. I have people come at me all the time, producers on the show, and they want to break a story. You need to be very careful. And I will go back and say, okay, where else? This is good, but confirm it, vet it, and give me two other sources on it, and then we'll run with it. Other than that, I don't want to be accused of fear mongering. I don't want to do that. And I also don't want to be caught broadcasting a mistruth or an untruth or an out and out lie. You have to be very careful. And it happens all the time. They get caught and they have to do a retraction. And I don't want to have to do that. I've done it a couple of times. You know, when I broadcasted the Sandusky thing, we broke that story. And, well, we weren't the first to break it. We were just the first to break it. There was another journalist out in Pennsylvania that had been working on the story for 2 or 3 years, 4 years. And a very intrepid, boots on the ground, real gumshoe journalist, the real deal. But her stuff never made it out there on the internet. She was just doing the research and going to the court and dealing with, but it just never made it out there. So when I got the news that day about Sandusky, which we got from a listener on the show, we get it. And I'm sitting on it, and I'm like, what? Do we break this or not? So my producers are sitting right in front of me. We're broadcasting live that morning, and it was a Friday morning, and my 2 producers are in front of me, and I go, dudes, get on the net right now and confirm this story. There was nothing out there. Not a word. Right, Sandusky's name wasn't out there for anything except for sports. And there was nothing there. Nothing in grand jury stuff. Nothing. There was nothing there. No other reporters. Nothing on anywhere. And I thought that's impossible. So we even went to this was during a commercial break, and we went to ESPN. We went to CNN. We went to Fox. We went to MSN. We went to every news. Reuters, and there was nothing there. And I was like nervous. And I said, okay.
It's like, do we break this and look like fools if it didn't happen? Or we might end up being the ones to nail this story first.
Well, and that's exactly what happened. So we came back off a commercial. I told the guys, I said, we're going to do this. And both of them looked at me and go, dude, we have to vet it. We have to confirm. And I said, there's something about this. I think we're just first. Maybe we're first. Let's roll the dice. And we did. Now, history says that we were right. But it was I broke my own rule with that, and my team here and Rita, we rode out that weekend with literally, when I'm not getting out of control here, thousands of not only emails but posts and comments, very. Death threats. It was bad.
Oh my God!
And the next day, that Saturday, Marie, a news organization out of Hong Kong and Florida contacted us, and I did a live interview, and then that went out, but then we rode through Sunday. Our video and stuff was blowing up. And it was out there, but nobody still. We went Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. No CNN, no ESPN.
Oh, wow.
Nobody would report on the story. And then Monday, early in the morning, CNN broke the story, and we were vindicated. But it could.
You were that time, yeah.
Yeah, it could have gone the other way. And then, of course, later on that week, everything that happened with Paterno and everybody was blaming us. It was a lesson learned when breaking a story like that and swaying public opinion. Oof, man.
You have to be discerning sometimes, or maybe go with your gut, because you may actually have a news story that nobody else has quite gotten a hold of yet. And to, make that decision is a tough one. It could be a career maker or a career breaker. So I do understand the struggle that media outlets go through when they're holding on to something. And they eagerly want to get it out there because they want to be vindicated the way you were. But the problem now is it's almost like a feeding frenzy of bad information. I mean, I was a journalism major in college, and, man, we couldn't turn in an article to the school newspaper unless we vetted the hell out of the thing. It had 25 sources, and, it was real journalism. And I think now what's happening is it's becoming more entertainment. It's not
true.
Good journalism anymore.
Well, and another example is what happened today. With the reports of this ambulance full of explosives. Well, this went out. This went out on the newswire. and it was maybe a suspected vehicle. It may have been this. It may have been disguised like an it may have been all of that, but what it wasn't was full of explosives. And the person that writes that and gets it out there now has to go back and say, okay, well, what were your sources? Well, and it's misleading, cause panic. Should the soccer game have been canceled? I honestly, I don't think so. I did bombs go off? No. Did they find anything? No. Let the soccer game go on, because the reason why it didn't go on was because of a suspected bomb, and the terrorists have been caught leaking information. They've got everybody so wound up that they win.
Everything is going to be suspicious.
And they win. They win. The soccer game didn't go on.
Exactly.
And that's the part that I just feel like if you really want to show any terrorist group that it ain't working, you ignore them. That's what you do.
Well, you got to go on with your life, because these things can happen. They happen domestically as well as foreign terrorism. You could go into your local grocery store, excuse me, and become a victim of a terrorist bombing, but you can't live your life anticipating that. And that is true freedom. Continuing to live your life in the face of all of, my son and I were talking about this because I wanted him to understand. You could go out and get hit by lightning. We could have a major earthquake, whatever. An asteroid could hit. There's all this stuff going on to be afraid of. But when you give in to that fear, that's when you've lost. And should we be a little more careful the week following? Yeah, probably, maybe. But at the same time, I think a lot of people really shut down. And I think the media, they assist with that. There's such fear-mongering. They continue to push the fear aspect of it. And I think in a lot of cases, they're told to do that. A lot of our news today is sponsored. So you have to really be careful that you're not falling into that abyss. Turn off the TV. Do something else. Take your mind and your focus off of it, and that's how you get a little bit of detachment, and you can really start to become more discerning about what's going on around you.
How does ISIS pull this off? I mean, because obviously we're talking about a serious amount of brainwashing. And when you look at these kids walking around with their black beards and their fatigues and their assault rifles, walking around with that crazed, dazed look in their face, obviously they believe in what they are there for. So there's something that is clicking that allows them to be successful in this recruiting and this mind screwing. I want to use another word there. Mind screwing that is going on. And I just don't get it, because I know that at one point these kids were actually good kids. And I know that,
so were the people that joined the Jim Jones cult and ended up committing suicide because he told them to. I honestly think we're looking at, religious extremism has all the same characteristics as cults, the same behaviors, the same characteristics, the same, way that your identity is forged on these beliefs to the point where, you become obsessed and fanatical with it. It operates, if you look at
Oh, I just lost Marie right there. That was absolutely bizarre. That was a weird, let's just bring her back on. That was bizarre. Click. Somebody didn't want this phone call to happen. Click. Mid-sentence. Okay. So what we were talking about is just that, mind control and cults. And I was getting ready to, at that point, call ISIS a cult. I don't think it has any, to be honest, I swear, I hate to interject my opinion here, but I just don't think religion has anything to do with it. It's not what parading guys around in cages in the back of pickup trucks is not a religion. And there isn't any God out there that would say that is cool, no matter who is in those cages. We wouldn't put ISIS in those cages, and it's the way that it is. Wow. Okay. Let's try this again. It is not looking good. I'll just take a break here if I don't bring her back. Okay. Let's we're at the top of the hour anyway, so let's go ahead and do that. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight, Marie D. Jones is with us. We're talking about mind control and ISIS in Paris, France. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Bespoke radio for the masses on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. We'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Did you ever turn to your radio for your favorite talk show to find that it's been preempted for this?
In the air to deep right center. Back goes Lewis to the wall, and it's out of here!
Or this?
And I'm ashamed of you, Hillary, for voting for it.
Do you have a favorite talk radio program that's not available in your city? Just go to TalkStreamLive.com for links to the best streaming talk radio shows. At TalkStream Live, you will find live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All your favorites are here. With such a large selection, you will also discover some new favorites. On the go and still want to listen? With a mobile smartphone, simply type TalkStream Live on your internet browser. Now you can take internet radio with you. You will also find hundreds of music, news, and sports streams. Best of all, the TalkStream Live directory is free and there's never a login required. Remember TalkStreamLive.com, the fastest route between you and your favorite talk radio show.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. Tonight we have very special guest Marie D. Jones. The D is there to separate her from all those imposters out there, the other Marie Joneses. Call-in numbers 323-825-5045. You can also Skype in Fade to Black 14. I do want to remind everybody that tomorrow night, Carrie Cassidy and Mike Barra right here for a roundtable discussion on all things ISIS in Paris, France. Now, Marie, right before you were caught mid-sentence. That was bizarre, too. That was just like
It
click,
was, yeah. It was creepy.
click. Somebody just said, well, that's enough is enough. Okay. Boom. Hit that button.
It's funny because I was equating religious extremists with cults, and I just very quickly want to tell you something creepy that happened last week with Church of Scientology.
Oh, never say that. Yeah, never say that on the show. I'm scared. Never.
Okay, well,
never
Larry and I wrote about them in Mind Wars because we wrote about cults. And
right.
So last week, I think it was I put it on Facebook too so people could see, just in case I disappeared. But I get this letter, and I saved it, and the envelope was handwritten to me at the address I'm at, which is a temporary address. And the letter was from the gal in the L.A. office of Church of Scientology claiming that they had been trying to track me down because apparently in 1994 I had made a request for more information of them, and they finally were getting around to getting back in touch with me to get my personality test done and get me the information I needed. And would I contact her? No. But the creepy thing was they not only had my address, which is, it's temporary. It's not even registered with the DMV or even the IRS. She used a name. She used the name that I wasn't using in 1994 because I was using a different name then. So that was very creepy. So maybe they're listening. I don't know.
Well, you see, the thing is about Scientology, and I'll just go on the record here. And if somebody from the church is listening right now and they want to go and talk about me back at the church, so be it. But I'm just going to speak the facts. Whatever they are trying to do to help people, and if it works, okay, fine. Okay, everybody is different. I get that part of it. But when you dig a little bit deeper and you peel back those layers of that onion and you get back to the core of what L. Ron Hubbard was about, and you go back and you look at history, that's what trips me out about Scientology. It was just a money grab, and it was a thing to see if he could, create this religion, and it was based on science fiction writing. It was just like a crazy talk, and the secrets that were going to be revealed once you get to this certain level, and you find out that so-and-so, I forget the guy's name now, but, was trapped in a prison on a mountain and nuclear bombs and aliens and, 50 million. Yeah. That's the part that flips me out. And the people that get involved in Scientology, if they knew that part going in, they would never get involved. They would never get involved. And
the thing is, though, look at Heaven's Gate. You had two people talking about the mothership coming and we've got to be ready. And that happened here in San Diego where I live. And my ex-husband at the time, we were still married, he actually met some of the members because he sold computers to them. And he said they were very intelligent, articulate, fun. That he didn't even know who they were until they talked about it later in the news. And he said, "Oh my God, we sold them all their computers," and that you never would have guessed.
Wait,
so,
what was that? What was that guy's name? That ran that. Oh, I'll think of it.
T and Doe. Remember Doe and T? And
Doe and
the
T.
Old guy. Yeah, Marshall Applewhite.
Yeah, Marshall Applewhite. So when that went down, the website was still live right after everybody died.
Yes.
And I went and spent a couple of days reading through the entire website and watching his videos. And I was thinking to myself, and this goes right back to the crux of the conversation about mind control. I'm looking at this guy, and he's obviously completely off his bonkers nuts, nuttier than squirrel poop, and I'm just thinking, how could somebody get sucked in by this guy? But obviously they did, and that's I don't understand how. And going back to that old adage, everybody wants to feel like they're part of a group, and the people that are in this group were people that were probably lonely in their life, or they needed some direction, and they needed foundation of something to work for and feel self-worth, and they get it from this group. I think that's oversimplifying it somewhat.
Well, yeah, the people that join cults have very similar personality characteristics that cult leaders purposely prey on. Now, if you look at cult leaders, they're very narcissistic. They're psychopaths, they're sociopaths, whatever you want to call them. They go from one extreme to the other. Those people prey on intelligent people, but empaths, people with big hearts, generous people who feel like nobody understands me. Nobody gets me. People are having family problems, the black sheep of the family.
Right.
People who feel like they're misfits. But what Larry and I learned researching cults, and I've been researching cults for a number of years because it really blew my mind when I found out years ago that some of the most intelligent people fall prey to cults. It has nothing to do with intellect, but they hone in on sensitive people. So they have this weird radar where they know that you don't feel like you fit in the world. Come and join our family. We will love and accept you here. So they have this wonderful positive reinforcement that they bombard you with. Once you're sucked in, the negative reinforcement begins, and sometimes that can even turn into torture, rape, abuse, taking all your money, depriving you of food and water. But they pull you in first with the positive reinforcement, and that's how they get you in. And so, yeah, it kind of surprised me because I thought, I'd never join a cult. But then I thought, well, how do I know that I'm so smart that they wouldn't be able to play on my empathy and my compassion and my sensitivity?
Right. Well, there was something else that I thought of. And look, I said at the beginning, I don't want my opinions to matter. But there was.
Oh, they do.
But I had this crazy thought last month, maybe the month before, and it's kind of this germ of this idea has just grown in my skull, and I can't get rid of it. And this is what I've kind of come to a strange conclusion when it comes to ISIS. That when I say it's not religion, you know what I think is appealing to these kids is to be able to run around without your parents, have a gun, and just be part of this
part of something. Yeah.
This fun thing, the guns, the killing, the drugs and everything else that is going on over there. Right.
Yeah.
That it is the twist of the religious part of it is there. I get that, but I'm just wondering if they're just thinking, hey, man, we can just, go to Syria and run around in downtown Raqqa or Mosul with guns and anti-aircraft guns and shoot things out of the sky and fight and have fun. Could it be something as simple as that?
It ties into identity. You give somebody an identity that makes them feel special, and they will kill for you. Yeah. Hell, they won't even kill for you. They'll kill for themselves. Yeah. As long as you make people feel special, man, you can control everything they do.
Right. And because if you look at that side and you open up your mind to that kind of view, then the other side of it kind of makes sense. Because beheadings aren't religious, rape
No.
isn't.
Nothing they do is.
Right.
Nothing they or any terrorist, whether it's Christian, Jewish, or Muslim, their religions don't condone that. They condone it. They have taken something and just distorted and twisted it, but they've made it their own. And if you want to be a part of our club or our family, you're going to have to do this and to be one of us. Totally plays in on this sort of identity. You're going to be one of us. Look what we can do. We can do anything. We don't have to follow the rules.
Right.
Oh, it's like kids on the playground.
It is kids on the playground, and and if you think about it, and you really want to go to a dark place, and you really want to have a bad nightmare, then you would dream about a city somewhere on Earth where they're burning people alive in cages and caging people and beheading people and raping people and running around with and just fire and brimstone and lawlessness and craziness. And if you get close, you're going to get, skinned alive. And you stop and think about, wait a minute, that's actually happening somewhere.
Yeah, that's creepy.
That's how backwards it is as far as ideology goes. There's no religion at all, and no matter how you want to twist it up, that says that is okay. Quran, King James Bible, I don't think there's any Hindus or Buddhists out there, Buddhists that would go that far. They tend to be
rather calm people.
Could you imagine that? Yeah, a big
bunch
Buddha.
Of monks.
Yeah.
There might be killer monks out there. We don't know, but no, it's the belief in them that just sort of inflames them. And but it's their belief. It's not really a belief based on a religion. It's their belief. And that's why there aren't as many of them as I think the media likes to tell us. Because you truly have to have lost every ounce of your humanity to become a terrorist. And I don't care if you're white, black, brown, whatever. You have no humanity left. I think that the vast majority of people have some, but they've got weapons and they've got access to everything that they need to terrorize and torment. They have bombs and explosives, and they have, the ability to look like they fit in and then set off a bombing somewhere and wreak havoc, because what happens is the greater world starts to think, oh my God, are they going to come here next? Is it going to be in my town? Can I go to the store? Is it going to be, can I go to the movies without some guy coming in shooting it up? That's what we start doing. We start thinking, can it happen here? And yeah, it probably could. But like you said earlier, we don't want to live with that constant fear. So they play on our fear.
Do you think
they're fanatical, but I think in a way they're not as lost in the mind as we think they might be?
Well,
like they know what they're doing in a way. They know how to make us fearful.
I think we always have to look at the head of the snake, and when we do that, has your research found, if we look throughout history and we start picking people out, whether it's Jim Jones or Hitler or al-Baghdadi or what have you, that these guys always seem to be, on meth, on speed, or they're on some kind of drug, or that they're a drug addict, and they have a twisted view of it. They've gone.
Well, not always. Sometimes they're just psychopaths. Sometimes they have been brutally abused as children. In the case of Hitler, he was exposed to an ideology that just caught on with him. Some of these cult leaders, Charles Manson, for example, he was a musician trying to get a record made, but there was a psychosis within him that just snapped. And when he realized that he had the power over the women that he was bringing into his quote-unquote family, and that he could run, sell drugs and have more power and more influence, I think he just snapped.
And
I think it's really hard to understand because they're all different, like what triggers them.
Yeah, but I think you understand what I'm saying, that most of these mainstream, the guys that were really successful at mind control, like, Hitler for one, but you just brought up Charles Manson, Jim Jones, they all turned out to be, serious, hardcore drug addicts. And that affects their psyche and their view of the world, and also their own self-importance and the megalomaniac
absolutely.
Side of it.
And I'm sure it changes their brain chemistry, so they're not thinking clearly.
I wonder if Marshall Applewhite was a meth head, a 70-year-old meth head.
I remember seeing him on the news, and that video where they show his face close up. You look in his eyes though, and he was in another dimension.
Yeah, he was.
He was. I don't know if he was high on something or just not there mentally, and
yeah. Michael Anderson just brought up David Koresh, and was he a drug addict too?
I don't think he was a drug addict, but I think he had a very similar start to his cult activities that Manson did, where the building of his family happened slowly. He didn't start out as a jerk. I actually think he was a musician. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, he was a guitar player.
Yeah, he was a guitar player. He, had a big ego. He liked the ladies. But I don't know if he was a drug addict. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
Yeah.
But he was into that heavy metal music.
I wouldn't put it past, to be able to think that way. You and I, we don't think that way. And if drugs is what is making them have these thoughts of just, power mad and that they can break all the rules and that killing is something that they can get away with, it's ethical and moral to them.
Well,
I kind of think they'd be on drugs.
Michael Anderson just tweeted L. Ron Hubbard too on drugs, and was he a drug addict? There were rumors about that. Yeah, it's just kind of weird how those guys get that. Like I said, that whole megalomaniac type of self-importance that they're better than it because their brain chemistry has been altered after years of heavy drugs. And
well, James Holmes, I mean, you got these shooters, that were taking antidepressants or, anti-anxiety stuff. And so you have those kind of people. They were on drugs. They're not street drugs. They're pharmaceuticals, but definitely things that are going to change your brain chemistry. And sometimes they cause schizophrenia, they cause suicidal behavior, rages. So we don't only just have like the street drugs to worry about, but people that are on pharmaceuticals, because James Holmes was a perfect example of someone that they found out had a record of being on these different, antidepressant type of drugs, antipsychotics, and then he went up, shot up a theater. So Is that connection there with every one of them? Possibly. I mean, and it's possible that Marshall Applewhite was taking Xanax, or we don't know. I don't recall them saying that he and his wife were drug addicts. Just they were crazy.
Yeah, maybe they were just crazy.
And maybe that's possible that some people are just not all there.
Well, Myra just tweeted out of Canada. She says, and I heard the story break today that they found syringes in the hotel room where the 8 terrorists were holed up outside of Paris. And I saw the video of inside of the hotel room. They showed the syringes, and I immediately they said, "Oh, they used these to make the bomb material for the explosive material for the vest." And I was thinking, aha, meth heads, that's
heroin, what else you shoot up, know?
Right.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's where my mind went. But maybe it was used for bombs, but I was thinking, that at what point in mind control, Marie, at what point do somebody that's got a level head and everything else, but they're absolutely convinced to go and kill themselves, and that you're going to put on this vest, you're going to go in front of this restaurant, and you're just going to blow yourself up.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
How does that happen?
Here's the thing. So you think about suicide bombers, but you also think about, here in America, we've had a number of mass shootings where the person then ended up shooting themselves. And you'll hear people say, myself included, why the hell didn't you just blow your own brains out and leave all the innocent people alone? I think that there is such a level, and I think terrorists might be a little bit different than some of these shooters. I think with some people there is such a level of despair that they're operating from, and also, mental imbalance if they're indeed taking any kind of drugs, that they're raging outward, and that's them shooting up a theater or an elementary school, but they're also turning the rage back inward and killing themselves. And I think with the suicide bombers and the religious extremists, they're raging outward how much they hate whatever is against or different from their ideology. And then I think they turn that inward as an act of heroism in their own minds.
Well,
I'm gonna be a martyr for the cause,
Right.
As crazy as it sounds to you and I, because I don't believe in anything that strong that I would die for it. I'm sorry.
Not even NASCAR or your NFL team. But Marie, this is there was something else that I thought about along these lines. Apparently now, again, we're depending on the mass media for this, but apparently now they're looking for 2 lone shooters that are loose, right? This international manhunt is going on. How come they didn't die? How did their vest didn't just blow up? And if the vest didn't blow up,
maybe at the last minute they said, "To hell with this! I want to live. I'm just going to run and see if I can get away with it."
Yeah, that could be too. Yeah, that could be. I haven't quite put my mind around or accepted. I have never. If somebody came to me and just said, "Hey, man, seriously, you need to blow yourself up, and this is why," I can't imagine what next is coming out of their mouth that is going to make me say, "Oh, that sounds like a good idea."
Yeah, I'm going to do that, but we're, and I know I'm going to be stepping into some landmines here. We're assuming that we're being given the true story.
That's
and
right.
I will tell you that I do not buy it, and that's all I'm going to say.
Well,
send me hate mail, people. I never, ever accept the official news story of any event until later, because that's when all the holes start to appear. I'm not saying they are, but that's just from after 9/11, I kind of learned that, we need to sit back and wait here and see what's going on. And, I'm starting to hear stories now that the passport was fake.
Yes,
how did these passports survive? There was a witness now who's coming forward saying that the two shooters in the Mercedes were white men, very muscular, looked like they were mercenaries. I don't know. I don't know if they're telling the truth or if they're part of the campaign of misinformation and disinformation. But I do know that the media has an agenda and that our government, our world leaders have different agendas for pushing an official story, and sometimes that official story is not the true story. And again, I'm not saying that I know anything, but that's just how I feel, because I'm not young. I'm not in my 20s or 30s. I've seen a few things happen, and after a while, you start to realize, whoa. I mean, come on, the Kennedy assassination, we still don't even know who shot Kennedy. There's so many holes that were riddled into the official story. And I think that that's part of the mass media manipulation, is to get the public to accept a certain official storyline. There may have only been 8 shooters or 8 terrorists. So these other 2 may not even exist. I don't know.
Well, the lessons learned from 9/11, Marie, for all of us, and especially my audience, they get that. And I think that we've been sensitized or maybe desensitized to the media's coverage of stuff like this. And because we definitely, and understandably so, we all had a knee-jerk reaction. Look, on September 11th and the day after and the week after, I had very bad polluted thoughts, like we all did.
So did I. I was screaming, kill Saddam, that son of a,
nuke them all, and I was right there. But now we know so much more about those events of that day. And when this goes down in Paris, if we walked away with one thing from 9/11, it is slow down. Slow down.
Slow down.
People of Paris, as bad as it feels right now, and it hurts, we've been through it, don't overreact. Don't jump the gun. Figure things out and then go do what you got to do. Or do nothing at all. But just slow down and don't overreact. And with the media over here, just like you just said, when they said that there's 2 or 3 things that don't sit right with me. And it's the constant comments about this being a complex setup with that they had to have outside help. It's not just the 8 guys. This is a complex web. As soon as they said, I just thought to myself, look, how simple. What do you mean complex? 8 guys, 8 guns, looking at their watch. Okay, at 9:30, we start pulling the trigger. That is not some complex terrorist thing. It's just 8 guys in a room going, okay, we're going to do this at 9:30.
Right. They synchronize their watches and they go do it. Yeah.
What's the complexity in that? What's the complexity of walking in the front door of a restaurant that is unguarded and you just open up and start shooting? What is complex about renting a couple of cars at budget rent-a-car or whatever? Now, I'm not trying to downplay or show disrespect to the families over in France. I'm saying that when the media starts saying stuff like this, when they don't know the actual facts of the case.
Right.
Nobody knows. And scaring the crap out of people that I was watching this guy today on one of the major networks, and he said, down in this section of Brussels, there's 800,000 Muslims there, and they're all unemployed, and they're all pissed off, and they're all going to Syria, and they're all coming back, and they're just angry, and man, they've got guns, and they've got this, and they're just ready to go. You know what, dude? What are you doing? You're freaking out.
Opinion.
Everybody.
It's not news. It's opinion.
Yes.
It's spin. It's people's beliefs that are being spewed out as news. It's not. News is factual. And if you don't have the facts, you at least say that up front. We don't have the facts yet. We're still compiling this story. We're still sourcing our information. One of the things that I learned, again, in journalism, follow the money, follow the motives. You don't just take everything at face value. But if you watch the news nowadays, it's mostly opinion anyway. I cannot tell you the last time I watched CNN. And when 9/11 happened, I was such a CNN addict. I was on it 24 hours. I wanted to absorb everything. Anytime anything happened in the world, if it was an earthquake or tsunami, I wanted, I was like a news junkie.
Right,
and it really got to me. I really started suffering a lot of depression and anxiety, and I said, this is ridiculous. And when I began to step away is when I began to see how I had been sucked in, and I saw the mind manipulation that was happening to me, Miss Smarty Pants, who, nobody's going to control my mind. And I see it happening again, and I have had to force myself to stay away from the news. I will wait until there's more information, and then I will look at all of it, whether it's coming from mass media, alternative media, eyewitnesses, even the conspiracy people, because guess what? Sometimes where there is smoke, there really is a fire. So that's how I handle it now.
Well,
because every time I turn on the news, I'm getting somebody's opinion. I'm not getting facts.
And if we look back to 1991, when we got our first taste of 24 hours news with the invasion of Baghdad, I was in a recording studio in Hollywood. I was recording this band, and I remember when things kicked off. And so in the back of the studio, not in the main part of the studio, but back in the drum room where the lounge was, we had a TV. And that thing didn't shut off for like 2 weeks. And,
exactly.
And this poor band is spending, $500 an hour or whatever it was.
Oh no!
And we are all standing in the room,
watching the news.
Watching the news, but we couldn't stop. But we all got that addiction back then, and I'll never forget. After like 2 weeks, one day, I just turned it off.
Yeah,
and
you had your information overload.
It changed. It changed my personality.
I
went back to being grounded, and I was like, wow, I got out of the studio. I'm leaving the house now, and I'm not watching. What was that guy's name? Bernard. What was his name? The black guy in Baghdad.
Oh God.
It wasn't Bernard Shaw. Was it Bernard Shaw?
I think so. That
Bernard
sounds familiar.
Poor
I could
Bernard.
Google it real quick.
he was everybody's best friend back then. And I had to back away from Bernard. I had to put him down and back off. But back to your point, that addiction, that feeling of going back into the news cycle with something else like this, whether it's Lady Di or another invasion or Afghanistan, 9/11, suddenly we're back into that 24-hour news thing where we don't know what's about to happen next. What's about to happen next? And that's what
it is an addiction too.
And that's what they're doing with Paris right now. They're creating these stories. Now it's Russia bombing again, and now it's France, and Germany says, no, we're shutting down. We're not accepting refugees into the United States. Everything now is just like this breaking news that we're going through right now, and that, in effect, is mind control.
It is. It's keeping you hypervigilant. It's keeping you distracted. It's keeping you on edge. It's keeping you from really thinking about what you're thinking. And that's exactly what it's intended to do. It hooks you. And it hooks me. I have to force myself not to turn on the TV when I hear about something. It's like, I'll wait, I'll find out. I always do. I'm a good researcher, but you feel that tug, that addictive tug to want more information. It's like crack. I've never done crack in my life, but that's the feeling is, oh my God, I want more. I have to have more information. And then you start calling and texting and going on Facebook and commiserating with your friends, and it just overwhelms and overtakes you.
And there's one other strange twist that is about to unfold right in front of us. Just when things couldn't get more dumb and insignificant and stagnant in this presidential race, both on the Democratic side and the Republican side, now we have Paris, and now we have ISIS, and we have this situation that has been brewing over there. It's come to a head, and now watch the tone of the campaign now change its focus.
Absolutely.
And now they have something legitimate in their eyes to campaign about. What are they going to do?
Timing.
Yeah.
You
think?
I don't like to say it, but it's true.
It's true.
Truth is not always convenient, but it needs to be said. Yeah, the timing is a little interesting. And we're going to be, and I'm going to make a prediction on your show right here.
Do it.
That a year from now, maybe not even a year from now, ISIS will be a thing of the past, and it's going to be some new terrorist group with a new name that everybody needs to be afraid of. We went from Al-Qaeda to ISIS. It'll be the schmucks. I don't know.
Well,
but it's this constant cycle of putting, driving fear into the public and keeping them distracted so they don't see the fact that your politicians are doing jack dookie about the important things in your country, the economy and jobs and all that stuff. Let's keep you distracted with talks of war and bombs and terrorists and, fear, 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 so you don't see all of the little things that are crumbling at your feet.
We've always had something going on. Always, after World War II, it immediately shifted to Russia. Russia ends in 1991. Now we don't have to deal with them anymore, but suddenly, poof, now we've got Al-Qaeda. Whoa, we've got Saddam Hussein.
The Middle East. Ooh,
right.
New bad guys.
Right. 9/11 happens, and now we've got this perpetual invisible enemy called terror that we are constantly fighting. And we've got North Korea now. China is now an enemy when China and Russia since the fall of the Soviet Union been like the good guys. And now,
I know. It's like everybody's switching teams, and it's just craziness.
It's perpetual. It is perpetual, and you're probably right. Who would have ever thought that Al-Qaeda would be soft? Well, that's the way we look at them right now. But they were made out to be, they brought down the Twin Towers, and they blew up our embassies in Africa, and they did the London bombings and the trains in Spain, and they're everywhere in Yemen, and they're just Libya and infiltrating into Egypt and the Arab Spring and Al-Qaeda, and now all of a sudden.
ISIS.
Yeah, Al-Qaeda is a bunch of Eagle Scouts. That's how
and they're helping us, right? They're helping us weed out ISIS. And the funny thing is we probably trained all of them, but we won't go there.
Well,
crazy.
I was watching some video this week. I was watching ISIS propaganda videos, right? And yes, I did. I was just going to go and check it out. Not the bad stuff. I was looking at the recruitment stuff. And every single guy that I saw, every single one, bar none, had an American assault rifle. And I was like,
hey, we did train these groups to help us fight the other bad guy at the time, who then became our allies, and then we had to train them again to fight the new bad guy. It's insanity, I mean, you want to blame anybody for all this, blame the CIA. I'm sorry, but it's crazy. But it is. It's like, who's it going to be next? And when the Middle East maybe calms down a little, or what, are we going to start finding craziness in South America or Australia? Where's it going to be next?
Well, when you see, it doesn't take a rocket scientist, some educated person. When you look at one of those videos, and every single guy's got a brand shining new, clean American assault rifle hanging off the where the frig did he get that? And there's
very strange.
And I'll let me throw this out at you, since you're a military surveillance research expert extraordinaire.
I don't know if I'm an expert, but I'll try.
If we have Predator drones, right?
Yeah.
Why don't we have 50 Predator drones at all times over every road in Syria, and when one of those ISIS convoys rolls by with the 100 Toyota pickup trucks with the anti-aircraft weapons hanging off the back of it, how are those allowed to? What are we doing? Why?
Well, come on. We have the technology to do that. The question is, why aren't we? And I think that's a very scary question to ask, because you can go down the rabbit hole and you can get into the conspiracy stuff. But the truth of the matter is, we have the capability. We've got satellites. We've got drones. We've got, infiltrators. We've got the capability. But why are we not doing that? Is there some political gain or some,
If we defeat ISIS,
then
we
what
don't.
I'm trying to say.
Right. If we go in there and defeat ISIS, then we have nothing to fight anymore. Is it that simple?
Well, we don't have a reason to maybe, do what we want to do in the Middle East and put more bases where we need them, and get this regime out and put ours in, and maybe get these oil pipelines built here and control these oil pipelines. There's usually a deeper agenda to all this that the public is never going to know.
Right, and it is deeper than that, Marie, because this is where it gets funky. It gets really smelly and dirty. Turkey is sitting on a 1 million-man army. Saudi Arabia is sitting on a 1 million-man army. Iran is sitting on a 1 million-man army. So there's 3, 4, 5 million guys surrounding Syria, and they could go in and clean up 20,000 ISIS guys in an afternoon. And everybody there is sitting on their hands, including us. It appears that Russia has had enough of it, and France is like, you don't want the French. I was thinking about this today. ISIS, you don't want the French Foreign Legion up your ass, okay? You need to really chill out, man.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a bad situation. But we have, it's not just us that is complacent. And I'm not sure that we need to be aggressive. Maybe being complacent and just using our planes and our drones is all we should be doing. Getting Americans in there just sends the wrong message. I'm talking about boots on the ground. But Iran is right there. Saudi Arabia is right there. They have an interest in this. Turkey's right there. Jordan is right there. They have an interest. They have borders. They have, they have the same refugee problems. And I'm sure that they don't enjoy ISIS any more than anybody else does. But nobody wants. I
agree with you. So, there's just a deeper agenda that allows these things to happen when, like you said, we've definitely got the surveillance technology. My gosh, just the ability to follow cyber chatter alone, we should know what everybody's up to. We should know whatever is being planned way ahead of time. It doesn't make sense. And again, I don't want people to think that we're trying to create this big, huge conspiracy theory here. But the problem is, whenever something of this biggest scale happens in the world, you, meaning you and I, Joe and Jane, we're not going to get all the facts. We are not going to get all the information. That is not how our governments operate. That is not how the media operates. You are going to get what you are told to get. And if somebody has an agenda, it is going to be spun towards that agenda.
Check out this agenda. I don't know if you caught this at the beginning of the show, the story I reported on, but chew on this for a second, Marie. The U.S. State Department signed off on a deal to sell $1.29 billion worth of smart bombs to Saudi Arabia.
Oh, my God, I thought they were our enemy at one point. Right. Weren't they partially responsible for 9/11? Didn't we find that out later? I don't get it.
Yeah,
they're going to turn against us in 2 weeks, and then we're going to have to finance their enemies to be our allies. It's absolutely, what the hell are we doing?
And the agency said that they would keep up the Royal Saudi Air Force from running out of weapons and provide sufficient weapon stocks for military action in Syria. And then last month, in October, this is last month, we sold $11 billion of warships, 4 Lockheed Martin destroyers, to Saudi Arabia. $11 billion, along with weapons training and logistics support. And then the month before that, Washington approved a $5.4 billion sale of 600 Patriot missiles to Saudi Arabia. Now, let's go back and add this up. 5.4 and 11, that's 16.4 billion, and throw on another 1.29. So that's $17 billion in action over the last 30 days to Saudi Arabia to drop bombs on Syria. Now
again, follow the money, and usually you can. That's insanity.
It's an outrage. It's a
and
total outrage.
I mean, we can go back to 9/11, and we can go back to the relationship of the Bush family with the Saudi royal family, and but here's the thing. Here's the important thing. You knew all that. Okay, so you blew my mind, Jimmy. You went and researched all that for the show. How many people do you think turn on the news and are watching all of this who are going to take the time to go dig and get that kind of information?
Right. Yes.
None, unless they have a reason to. You're writing a book, you got a radio show, whatever.
Right.
You're a pundit. You took the time to do that, and that is the problem, is that the majority of people don't have the time, the energy, or the need to dig any deeper. They're going to take whatever they're told because they're too tired, they're too busy, they got to get the kids to school, they got to go to work, blah, blah, blah. I don't have time to sit and do research on the internet for 3 hours like we do. And that's really frightening to me because it means that sometimes the truth is hidden in plain sight and people just don't have the time to want to see it.
When we talk about these conspiracies and these world agendas that we're, sometimes afraid to confront or contemplate, when you think that, and you're holding back, and I understand that, but when you think that, where's your mind going? Do you think I'm going to throw this out there, but I want to know where your mind is going. Do you think that China, Russia, and the United States are all on the same page and they know they have some kind of end game? Is it that type of conspiracy and there's that kind of end game, or is it completely out of their control and it's the military industrial complex and the corporations behind it, the Lockheed Martins of the world, the Raytheons of the world, that are building these weapons and selling them and running the economy that is driving this?
I'm going to lean to the latter, and it's funny because I just, earlier today saw some reports that were coming in of who benefited the most from what happened in Paris, and it was the weapons manufacturers, and how Wall Street trading was going crazy in that area, and I thought, oh, well, gee, I'll be damned. I don't know, but I would lean more towards the military-industrial complex, absolutely. And in all of the research that we did for Mind Wars, and just a lot that I've done on my own, I have a much greater fear of corporate power than I do my own government, because I believe corporations, from what I've seen, actually are running the government, and they're lobbying and they're calling the shots and they're financing campaigns and they're blackmailing, what have you. That corporate entities scare the crap out of me. And I think that we ignore sometimes how much power they actually have over who we are as Americans, and what our interests are in the other parts of the world.
Do you think that when somebody's running for office for the first time, they've just gotten out of college or 25 years old, running for city council in their town or whatever, and they have the best of intentions? They really do. They want to change the world, grassroots. Let's start with the parking meters in downtown. Let's, whatever it is, right? And they have a different view and a different take on the world and what they want to do. And then something changes. And is that change that happens inside of them, is it because they become a career politician, or is it because they are now tasting money and influence
and power
and power, because they change? It's not the same person that's running for city council that is running for Congress.
I have a lot of friends who have run locally, and I've seen both sides of the coin. Okay, so on one side you have people that run for office because they're arrogant. They believe that their ideas are the best, and they want the power, they want the greed, blah blah blah. Okay, there's those people. But I think there are a lot that really get into politics because they want to be in public service, because they think that they can make a change. Their hearts are in the right place. And one of two things happens. And in the case of a couple of friends of mine that ran for office, they ended up being so disheartened by what they were forced to deal with. And they didn't want to compromise, so they just got out of politics. And they did other things. They worked for charities, what have you. But I know a couple of other people that got in there with the understanding that if they wanted to make some changes, they were also going to have to play the game. They were going to have to compromise. They were probably going to have to go along with things that they really didn't believe in or support. But they kept feeling like if I could just get a certain amount of authority and power and control, I could get this bill passed, or I could push, this agenda through, which would be a positive agenda. So I think it's just sort of runs the whole gamut there of people who get in for the power, people who get in because they really want to help, and some will get out because they can't handle it, and others just come to accept, I got to play the game. And I think maybe sometimes the game overtakes them.
And I agree with that. And then when they get to Washington, and now they are, they've lost touch with their constituents. They have no idea what's going on back home in their hometown.
Right.
They spend all of their time either on the Hill or on vacation. They're doing one or the other. But they are trying to push these pork bellied bills through Congress and the Senate, and these laws and passing and budgets that are tagged onto stuff that they have no idea what it's even about. But just as long as their interest, dealing with whatever corporation back in their district is what is pushing their agenda in Washington.
They'll accept all the crap. They'll accept all the add-ons and the pork belly. But I think there's another side to that too, because if I ever ran for office, and I couldn't because I'm way too opinionated, but if I did, and let's say that my big agenda was to get a really strong domestic violence bill through. So, I have to start playing the game because, that's not going to cut it on its own. And somebody puts forth a very large bill that has 5 or 6 things that I don't like, but they're guaranteeing that I'm going to get my full domestic violence bill passed. What am I going to do? Am I going to say no because, well, you're doing these 5 or 6 other things that I'm not real crazy about? Or am I going to say yes because I could help domestic violence victims? I can see where they really start to get torn after a while between, making the right choice for the right reasons or the right choice for the wrong reasons. And it's not a job I would ever want. Even though I have all my opinions about how I think the world should be run, there's no way in hell I would ever go into politics.
Well, isn't the oldest rule on planet Earth should apply here? 2 wrongs don't make a right?
You would think. You'd also think the golden rule.
Yeah, do unto others.
With religion and politics. But hey, that ship sailed a long time ago.
But And so how do we, in the best interest of the United States and our Constitution and the very fabric of what we know and love, do we need to do away with term limits?
I absolutely think we need to do a lot of things. But, I think that, there are a lot of career politicians that need to get their boots kicked out. They're just in there for the benefits and, they're not doing anything for their constituents, really. And I think there needs to be more women in office because, hey, we're half the population. I don't know. I remember my mom and I, at one point, we started talking about, well, would we be better off with sort of a group? Instead of a president and a vice president in Congress, you have 5 or 6 presidents who decide, you have sort of a parliament or whatever. I'm not sure. Third parties have tried to make attempts to change things. They never seem to come through. I like the idea that there could be this one person who really is for the people that can somehow power through. But my fear is, again, like you were just saying, once they get in, they got to play the game. They're not going to be able to call the shots the way they want to.
No, it is a good old boys club. And but I do agree with you. I think we are starting to get a little tired of the status quo in Washington.
Yeah.
And in a strange way, I am not political. I don't go to either side of the fence. I deal with conspiracies, and that's why Washington is so easy to talk about. But in this presidential race, as crazy as it sounds, that I think that's exactly why Trump is not only ahead in the polls, but is appealing to everybody because he is not a career politician. For the first time that we have that option, as much of a doofus as Ben Carson is, and he's strange.
Yeah,
he is one step away. He'd be the last guy to operate on my brain. I can tell you that right now.
Wouldn't you be terrified if you found out he was your surgeon?
He'd be the last. You know what? I think I'm cool with the brain tumor guys.
I'll learn to love my tumor. Thank you.
I'm going to Chinese medicine on this one, Ben.
Yeah.
But anyway, but that is also the strange appeal about a doofus like Ben Carson.
Yeah. Well, you have a point there. People want something that is outside of the box. But it has to be a quality outside of the box person that can do the job, and that, might be a little bit harder to find. I actually, I like Bernie Sanders because he's always been an independent. But I, again, question his ability.
He's a communist.
A socialist.
He's a pinko commie.
I question anybody who comes in as a sort of an independent voice. I remember here years ago, remember John Anderson, who was running? Yeah. He kind of the same thing. It was sort of that sort of down-home guy, that was like your next-door neighbor.
Yeah.
But the thing is, do they have the ability to play the game? Look, this is a game. We might have to come to realize that we need our politicians to be able to play the game, but they should be playing for us, not for themselves. Okay, we're the team. And I think that's what happened, is politics has become about the politicians and not the people that are putting them in office.
Yeah.
And we need to hold their feet to the fire. Why are we as the public not doing that?
Well, I don't like, what's funny is I don't like anybody that's running right now. Every single one of them scares the crap out of me. I don't want anybody that's running right now holding the nuclear suitcase.
It's scary.
Yeah, I don't want Trump. I don't want Hillary. I don't want Bernie. I don't want Ben. I don't want Kucinich. I don't want Rubio. Nobody, Cruz. None of these guys impresses at all. And it's the best that we can do in this great country of ours. This is the best that we really,
Listen,
honestly, I'm saying this.
Jimmy, it's like American Idol. After several seasons, you're just giving us crap to choose from.
Exactly. You know, and when you think about the great people that we have, the great people in this country. I mean, great, cool, forward-thinking people. And then we've got these. This is the best that we can do.
Well, because the great people don't want to get into politics. You know, that's the problem. We get the clown car.
Oh, hold on. Okay, got breaking news. There's a gunfight in Paris right now. Breaking news. And it looks like they've got one of the suspects. And we're going to be up against a break, so I'm going to look into this and see what I can report back to everybody. And I'll go to my alternative sources. And maybe you should, too. Check it out on this break, Marie. And let's see what it says.
Wow.
I've got text coming in. A suspect is hurt, and it is happening now in real time. Okay, so we'll look into that. And see, when we're talking about mind control, and we're talking with these events that are fluid, not only coming out of Paris, but what we're dealing with in Syria, here in our own country, governors now saying, no refugees here, and the way that the mass media is controlling the herd. And I don't want to use that word sheeple. I will never say that on my show. I just did. I did it once in 2 years,
but
3 years.
But it's a good word.
But it is a way to force an ebb and flow of public thought, and that's what I want to talk about after the break. So let's take this break right now. Let's look into this breaking news, and I'll have this for you when we come back tonight. Marie D. Jones, and the D is there to separate her from the imposters. She is with us tonight. And we'll pick up on the backside of this. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black.
Hi, everybody. This is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
KGRA Radio. Intelligent talk.
Are you a paranormal investigator, ghost hunter, or UFO skywatcher? If so, FNGinnovations.com has the product you definitely need in your investigations kit or go bag. Introducing the Morpholite Wide Beam Tactical Flashlights that put the light where you need it most. Traditional flashlights shine a focused round beam with limited line of sight in the dark. Morpholite Tactical Flashlights change all that, utilizing a revolutionary wide beam design to enable you to see safety hazards such as hanging wires and steel, pipes, and holes in the floor you just can't see with a focused round beam. In the field, where safety is paramount, a 180-degree beam increases orientation and peripheral vision in the dark. Morpholite flashlights are ideal for investigations in abandoned facilities such as houses and hospitals, factories, caves, and tunnels. Avoid those low-hanging tree branches that poke your eyes in the woods. Visit FNGinnovations.com to see a full line of tactical lights and accessories. That's FNGinnovations.com.
Now you can find all your favorite talk radio shows live, all in one place at TalkStreamLive.com. Listen from anywhere, office, home, or in your car. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com and click on one of the many live talk show hosts you want to listen to. It's free and easy. No computer? Download the smartphone apps. Never miss your favorite talk show. Find them all at TalkStreamLive.com.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why fade to black? Because you never got that pony, damn it.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. Yeah, it's going off over in Paris right now. I've bounced around to about 6 or 7 different news outlets. Police raid is taking place in northern Paris suburb of Saint-Denis. French police are saying they wouldn't comment on a report of police being shot. Witnesses report heavy gunfire and that police are blocking roads in northern Paris suburb of Saint-Denis. Police officers have been shot and wounded during a raid seeking one of the suspects in the Paris terrorist attacks. And, you know, it's the older brother of Salah Abdesalam is the man that's being hunted. And it looks like, okay, that's what I've got right now. Police officer shot and wounded during the raid. This is according to BFM TV out of Paris. Now, let me say this. This is fluid. It's happening right now. I'm looking at some live footage that is going down. And okay. The only thing that I can draw from this at this point, and it's very...
The alleged East Paris attack.
Don't need to have that live. Are you there, Marie?
I'm here. Yeah, now I can hear you.
Yeah, you were just listening to that. Is, shots fired. Somebody's shooting back, I'm assuming. That's why the police were shooting.
Well, yeah, I'm watching CNN, and so on their TV report, they've got shots fired, Paris suburb. On their Facebook site, they have that there were police officers shot and wounded during a raid. This was a half an hour ago, as they're seeking the suspect.
Yeah,
so,
it's very, very, very fluid, and I have to mute some of this stuff here because they always fly on live video.
Right.
But, it's the best place to go for me is BFM TV right out of Paris. They seem to they're feeding everybody else the information.
Right, exactly. They're getting the source feed. And the funny thing is these news stations have to fill. They have to fill the time. So even if nothing's happening, they'll find something to talk about. And a lot of times what they're doing is giving their opinion or they're speculating. And that's what really, when people watch the news, they need to be really aware of the fact that a lot of things are speculation until there's absolute proof that something has happened. Shots fired, there may be some police dead. Well, are there? How many? Do we know that for sure? So
it's
those are the things that I look for.
Yeah, I'm going to tweet this link out to everybody really quick. Let me hit the audience with this. This is where I'm going, and I've spent a lot of time on this page. And just click translate. That's all you got to do because it's all in French. But it's they're the one with all the reporters on the ground. There you go,
They're
Twitter
there.
audience. Yeah. There's the link for you. And that's where I'm at right now. And this update, the live video that I'm watching here, is literally from 6:04. So there you go. It is literally that time here now. So
right, yeah, they're getting the minute by minute. Yeah,
well,
and this is going to happen. I mean, for the next few weeks, there are going to be breaking news stories coming in, and even when it has nothing to do with the terrorists people are going to assume until they find out otherwise.
Well, now
So,
why do you? Now we have to go into another direction with this. Immediately after the events happened in Paris, or any other thing that happens like this, websites immediately start, and I'll go and I'll read just for laughs, and I'm going to offend some people right now, but it's the truth. Where they immediately go, this is a false flag, and this is a false flag thing. This didn't really happen. These are all actors, and I don't see 1,000 people at a concert venue being all actors. I don't see that. But
yeah, that's a little strange.
Lack of blood. There's no blood. What are you guys talking about? Look, they're dragging a body. There's no blood, and I don't get that. Are they the false flag people out there? Some things are false flags. Yes.
Right, exactly.
There are. But not everything is a false flag. And
they add to the misinformation and, perhaps the intentional disinformation. They add to the confusion by claiming that everything is a big giant conspiracy or that everything is the government setting it up. And I like to read that stuff too, because like you said, there are real false flags, and I want to know if it is a real one. But I think you can automatically figure out that some of this is just people overreacting. What really struck me is somebody passing a meme around of that one gal that they claim that's at every shooting and every bombing. She has long dark hair and she's an actress, And I thought to myself, well, that's really stupid, because if you are going to do a false flag and you are going to use actors, why would you be so stupid as to use the same ones over and over, knowing that every media camera and cell phone camera is going to be on, those people? I mean, why would the government be that stupid?
They have a really good agent.
Exactly. Yeah. She's like, can you get me work with another false flag?
Yeah,
I need
exactly.
Work this week.
You need work this week.
Come on. I mean,
there's
really.
got to be another false flag going down. And I saw the same article that you're referring to, where they showed the same, supposedly the same actress that was, at Sandy Hook, and she was at whatever doesn't matter. Sandy Hook, the Boston Marathon. Yeah, Boston Marathon, right.
I don't, why should I believe that you didn't just take a picture of the same chick, that you follow? I don't have to believe everything that a conspiracy theorist tells me without doing the same amount of research that I'm going to do when the media tells me something.
And what's the mentality?
And yet they kind of assume that,
Well, what's the mentality behind what is driving somebody to post and run a website that is doing just that? They're anti-disinfo, but yet they're spreading disinfo,
yeah.
Right?
You know what? It's another form of extremism. It's such anti-government, hatred and paranoia that you're going to point the finger of blame on the government for everything. I mean, my gosh, every earthquake is not HAARP. I'm sorry. Every shooting is not the government, some MK Ultra brainwashed shooter. Sometimes there's just people that snap and they happen to own guns. And that drives me crazy, because it is a form of extremism. And what it does is it discredits real conspiracy theories that need to be looked at. It discredits the real holes that might be in some of these stories, because when you have those bizarro, everything is a conspiracy people, they take the attention away from any kind of intelligent dialogue you might otherwise have as to, well, you know what, I wonder if there is more to this story or not.
And I think a lot of and I understand the reason to look into the side of conspiracies. We have to do that. We have to question everything. I understand.
Question authority, sure.
Sure, but it would break a lot of hearts if these people that go to some of these websites that have heavy millions and millions of people that go to these websites, and they found out that the people running the websites are sitting in a room laughing because all they are doing is cashing checks. And the website and the stories that they are writing are driven by money. They could care less. As long as they have a reason to do another false flag story and get clicks to their website, they're making...
They want attention just like everybody else. But, okay, I do know some people in the conspiracy field that are very, very serious about what they do, very passionate about it. But even they have discernment. Even they will say, I'm going to stand back a few paces, and wait and see. But these other people, I think they're just as extreme as somebody who believes everything the media tells them and buys everything the government tells them without ever questioning authority. It's like they're those two ends of the same yardstick, and the rest of us are stuck in the middle trying to figure out what the heck's going on because we're being fed information from both of those extremes. But I think it's some people, I won't say his name, but I think there is a very prominent person who, does it because it's for attention. You become a star in your field. There are stars in the paranormal field. There are stars in the conspiracy field. And it's almost like once you've bought into that, you can't stop. You can't, ever say, whoa, maybe I was full of crap in some of the things that I put out there.
And this is what is fantastical about what you just said. That particular person that you're talking about, and he's somebody that I love, but they're looking at you right now through the light bulbs in your bathroom. Okay. So, but I love that guy, and although. I don't even think that he believes half of the stuff that he says. I
don't either.
I truly believe that. But he has been spot on a lot of other things.
But the problem is it becomes hard for other people to take him seriously. And I'm not, there's a lot of people that we could say this about because they lose you with some of the other stuff that's like really extreme and bizarre. But you know what? In their minds, they are passionate about the information that they're putting out there, and they believe in it, and they have whatever agenda or their own reasons for doing that. And it's up to us, it's up to the average people, the average viewers and listeners and readers to try to find the truth in all of these different people that are coming at us with their different angles and their different agendas.
Right. Well, do you remember Bill Cooper?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, from the UFO cover-up.
Yeah. Now, Bill...
way back when,
Yeah. And Bill, again, just like Alex Jones, that's it, I said his name. I love Alex. I truly love Alex Jones. Okay, so I've got it out there. I put it out there. I don't buy half of his stuff, but I love the guy. I think he's great. But Alex Jones is like the new version of Bill Cooper. And
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And Bill started off on the right foot. Early on, back in the day, he started off on the right foot. He talked about the mystery schools and religion going back, tens of thousands of years before Egypt, and talking about Osiris and Osiris and Isis and the Isis, not the Isis.
Right, the Egyptian one.
Right. And he set the stages for a lot of things early on, and his radio show was fantastic. I've listened to every single broadcast he's ever done. And I've studied the guy. And then he did kind of go off the rails a little bit. And when he started to go off the rails is when he was really hitting on all cylinders about other things, about terrorist activity. They were going to focus on New York. This is money-driven. 9/11. They're going to do this. They're going to do that. And he called everything all the way up to 9/11. He was spot on the money, but nobody was listening. Why?
Right.
Because he talked about that crazy stuff early on, and he went out there a little bit. He
did, yeah.
And it discredited him, and then the media was able to when he was martyred and he was taken out, and when he was taken out, the headlines that reported on the story were calling him what do you call the? I'm having a brain freeze. The armed civilian groups. What are they called? Militias.
Militias.
He was a militia guy, and he kind of hinted at that, but he wasn't. But that is how the media tried to paint him to the rest of the country in the end. That
crazy person,
the crazy militia guy that was armed up at his house in a fortified compound, and he's broadcasting his radio show, his crazy militia, gun show, and that's not what he was about. And his message got clouded, and it never really got distributed. And
there's media manipulation right there. How the media spun his who he was, so that you forgot about all the things that he was right about because you were so focused on the discrediting and I like Alex Jones too, and I think that like you said, a lot of the stuff that he says is just totally right on the money. But I worry about that same thing when and I think that this is for anybody who's involved in the conspiracy field or any kind of field where, even the paranormal field, you can be so easily discredited. And once you are, the media will run with that and they'll destroy your life. And the thing is you still may have good, solid information to offer, but nobody's going to listen to you because of that process of discrediting. And
How did you get so smart? So, and before we go there, you know what I didn't do this week since Friday. I did the one thing that I just never do, but I didn't go and listen to Alex Jones. I didn't listen to O'Reilly. I didn't go and listen to all the rowdy guys out there that the
pundits.
Can you just imagine what was going on some of those shows? And I didn't want to get all caught up in it, and I just stopped. I cut myself off. I've just been trying to gather facts and trying to stay a little bit disconnected on everything because I didn't want to get pulled in. And can you imagine?
Me too, yeah.
Can you imagine what those guys are spewing right now? Foaming at the mouth because this is exactly what fuels not only their fire, but their whole agenda that they're talking about is now playing out, according to them, in Paris and in Syria and in Iraq and the New World Order.
And the funny thing is they could all have their own opinions, but they'll find evidence to back up and support their opinion. And that's the thing, with some of these events where we don't yet have all the facts, is you could have 5 different, completely different outlooks, and yet these, talking heads will manage to find evidence to back up their particular outlook. And it's very confusing and emotionally draining for the average viewer to watch that. I did the same thing. I didn't even watch my local news except to see the weather, and the weather reports here are always the same anyway, so, But you have to pull back because it will eat away at you. It's their opinions. If you need factual information, you're going to be able to get it. You don't need that emotional drain on your brain.
You said something amazing earlier. You said every earthquake isn't caused by HAARP.
It's not. My dad was a geophysicist. That was his specialty, was earthquakes and volcanoes. And come on,
Well, now with
maybe some, but not every single little 2.9, shaker. It's that extreme.
Do you feel do you feel something building up though, with what has gone down in the last month? In the last month, where we've had the Pope in D.C. in the United Nations. We've had the wind down to the military exercises here in the United States.
Right.
We've had different terrorist attacks around the world. We've had a couple of major earthquakes, a couple of volcanoes. We've had the down jet. We've had the other down jets that have gone down in the last year, MH370.
That we haven't heard a word about.
Right. It's. Do you feel? And then we had the news of Kepler finding the alien megastructure, out. And it's like all of this has been building up and building up. Do you feel that? Is it a tangible thing?
Yeah, it's. I'll get a little metaphysical here. Everything is energy, and I think we're in a cycle right now of incredible escalation and resistance. I don't know if it's because there's a presidential election coming or what have you, but anytime great change occurs, it's preceded by an incredible amount of resistance. I mean, I think you know that in your personal life, you try to make a big change. First, you resist the hell out of it.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like we're in that resistance pattern. But the funny thing is I felt that every now and then. It is cyclical. I think that a few years ago, leading up to 2012, even though I didn't buy any of the, end of the world crap, but I did feel that resistance. I think that there is a change coming that the people are going to at some point say, we've had enough. I think that's happening already. So then the powers that be fight back, and then that's where you get that incredible resistance. If the people are talking about change, the ones that stand to lose something if the people change are going to fight back even harder. And I think that that's an energy. It's a negative, smothering, suppressing energy that everybody is feeling. And I've heard zillions of people say the same thing.
Well, and then I forgot all of the domestic stuff here. Not only the mass killings that have gone on across the country, Ferguson, Charleston, racism, the drone flights over our cities, or cops are killing citizens every time they pull you over for a bad license plate. They shoot you in the head, and it's just one
fear.
Yeah, right. And that coupled with everything else that is just going on, it's like heavy news all of the time. We haven't had a rest in months. It's been months. And before that, it was Ebola. It's just this crazy.
Exactly. I think it's going to get worse, but here's the test. Are you going to lay down and die, or are you going to stand and fight back? I think that's the question that each of us is going to be kind of called to ask ourselves, because I do think it's going to get worse before it ever gets better.
I think I need to move to Montana into a mountain cabin with a pound of weed and just retire.
There you go. You could be self-sustaining. You get solar panels. You grow your own. But, even that, we're seeing more people doing that. I think there's some positive stuff going on, too. But definitely there seems to be a weird negative thing, energy, going on. And we're not the only ones that are noticing it.
Well, and we have to collectively start to make a change, and I think that we're starting to do that. And we're going to be up against a break, and when we come back, I do want to close out the show talking about what is it that we can do as citizens. Do we? Well, let me ask you this, Marie. Do you have food in your garage? Do you have water? Do you have what do they call those freak out bags? What are they called? The bags that are packed with 4 days worth of food.
I have enough for 4 people to survive for several months, but I am a trained disaster preparedness and response second responder. I'm trained in everything. I have a ham radio. I'm a ham radio operator. I'm ready.
Do you have
Bring it on.
Do you have a generator and a crank radio?
I don't have a generator, but I probably should get one. But I've been trained for. I actually worked for Warner Brothers Records in the 1980s into the 90s, and I got trained there. That company was very big on training people to respond to earthquakes.
Wait. You worked at Warner Brothers in the 80s?
Warner Brothers Records. I started in 1988, and I left in 1994.
Shut up. On Warner Avenue in Burbank. The Brown Building.
I was the executive assistant to the head of the black music department.
And his name was? Or was it
first it was Ernie Singleton, and then he left to go to MCA, and then I worked for Ray Harris.
Yeah, I knew them both.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Yeah. Oh, I used to walk those halls every single day.
I wonder if I ever saw you, and just you know.
Well, I was skinny with long hair. You remember Al McPherson in the basement?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Now, see, if I just drop that on you, you know, I know what I'm talking about.
That is freaky.
Absolutely.
Oh my God! Yeah, they were big on earthquake. I mean, I was there when the Northridge quake went down, and I remember they shut down for a couple of weeks, and we didn't have to go to work if we didn't feel like it. And then they had like counseling sessions in the big conference rooms, and. You know, oh, wow, that is a trip.
You know what? That building now is growing weeds. I mean, I don't know what they do now there, but it's not music. It's.
Oh, I know. Oh, well, I left it when Mo Austin and Lenny Waronker, when there was such a huge upheaval. And after I left, my boss, Ray Harris, he left shortly after. And I tried to contact some of my friends a year later, and they were gone. Everybody had split.
Do you remember Steve Berman?
Steve Berman. He was one of the executives.
Yeah. He was
right?
He was my roommate.
Really?
Yeah, Steve Berman.
Oh my God! Yeah, we probably passed each other in the halls and didn't even know it.
Well, you know,
that's a trip.
Well, you know what's cool about Warner back then, and this is why I was just shocked to hear you say that, because you were there, and I talk to people about this all the time. Warner Brothers, well, any record company, but Warner Brothers, that building back then was packed full of people and fun and life.
Oh, my God. We drank
insane.
On the job. I can say that now.
Yeah, it was insane, you know. And
we partied. And Prince came and played on the patio.
Absolutely.
It's like, what?
Yeah, Van Halen walking around. And
I got to meet so many people. I got to escort Madonna to the bathroom.
Sure.
I mean, it was the coolest. And I was there for a long time. And to tell you the truth, the reason why I left was because the Northridge earthquake scared the living bejesus out of my ex-husband and I. We said, we're going to San Diego. Then we went to San Diego and got evacuated 2 times for wildfires. So it's like, whatever, you know?
That is too funny.
Isn't it?
And now that building is done. And the record industry is gone.
Well, Warner Electra Atlanta was right across the street. I remember going onto the lot and seeing movie stars and having lunch. But the music industry in the mid '90s just took a nosedive. But when I was there, it was insane. It was jumping. And
yeah.
I was so lucky to have been there.
Yeah, I'll never forget, 1988, 87, 88, 89, when I was hanging out there, 1990. Whew,
yeah.
Man alive. Okay. Let's take our last break, and when we come back, let's talk about changes that we can do. And, what I don't do on the show, we don't advertise food preparedness kits, right? We don't do that. But sometimes I wonder. We'll talk about all of that. Tonight, Marie D. Jones is with us. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Fade to Black. Fascinating conversation. We'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
All right, you Fadernauts. Studio Dome has done it once again. A new Studio Dome Fadernaut special. Introducing the Studio Dome Boom Box Bluetooth speaker. It's got a rear-firing bass film subwoofer and dual 52-millimeter main speakers. You'll never listen to your tablet or cell phone speakers again. Just click on the Studio Dome banner, use the promo code Jimmy, and you'll get the SBB for $49 and free shipping. And get a Buddy 4-port USB charger for free. That's a $19.99 value right there. And they'll throw in a Buddy in the box. It's the best deal on the net anywhere. Just go to JimmyChurchRadio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner, enter the promo code Jimmy. Go Beckley Teppy.
This is Kristen, Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Absolutely fascinating conversation tonight with Marie D. Jones. She is the author. Her current book is Mind Wars, The History of Mind Control, Surveillance, and Social Engineering. Been a fascinating conversation tonight. And Marie, just before the break, I was talking about what is it that not only physically, the logistical side of what we can do in case of something bad happens, but how can we also change the tide of this consciousness that seems to be getting a little bit foul right now around the world? What can we do about that?
That's a tall order. You know what? I mean, I hate to sound so corny, but it's like that let peace begin on earth and let it begin with me. It has to begin within us as individuals. I think sometimes people look at changing the world as this huge, impossible act, but you don't have to change the world. You just have to change yourself. And if enough of us do that, then the collective begins to shift. And I think some of the things that people can do, don't turn off the TV. Detach, be a little more discerning. Don't believe everything that you're told. Do a little bit of research. Trust your gut. Sometimes your gut will tell you, hey, there's more of this than meets the eye. Stay away from the fear-mongering because that is crippling. I would say, read, listen to radio shows, get as informed and educated as you can, but at the same time, you've got to be happy. You've got to laugh. You've got to enjoy this one life you've been given. I think that's the most powerful way to bring about change is if more people can be happy, if more people can follow their passions and put good energy out in the world. Take care of your family, take care of your health, you know. I mean, it really sounds trivial, but it's not.
Do we, when it comes to groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda and whoever else is out there, do we ignore them?
No, we don't ignore them, but we don't go, declare war on a country that is just as disgusted with them as we are. No, we don't ignore them, but we have to keep things in perspective. We cannot put 100% of our attention as a country or as a human being on terrorism. That's exactly what that needs to, is to suck our energy dry. You still got to live your life. And the better you can live it, and the happier you can be, and the more positivity that you can spread, and the better person you can become. If enough people do that, then, that negative stuff that we were talking about begins to lose power. I think one of the most important things people can do is be aware of their own thoughts that go through their minds, because the vast majority of things people think don't originate with them. It comes from external sources.
Well,
to take back your power.
Right. And so is paying too much attention to ISIS is that the wrong tact? Yeah,
It'll make you sick. Is that really going to help you? Is that really going to help the world if there are more of us crippled by fear walking around, hating and raging and, venting and feeling sick to our stomachs and depressed and scared? How is that going to help? Yeah, we got to deal with it. But then you got to pick yourself up and you've got to say, you know what? The best revenge is a happy, successful life. And if enough of us do that, the tipping, we'll have achieved that tipping point.
Well, when our parents used to tell us, and it used to frustrate us when we were growing up, but don't pay the bully any attention. That's all he wants is attention, and it would just infuriate you, because that's not what you wanted your parents to say. You wanted your dad to go kick the dude's ass.
Yeah, kick his butt.
Right, but and that never happened. And the advice was always, don't pay him attention. He just wants attention. He just wants attention. And it felt like they were always getting that attention. And is that what is going on with ISIS and Al Qaeda? And it's that maybe out of sight, out of mind, and that they would slow down out of frustration because nobody was paying attention and giving them headlines?
Yeah, I blame the media for that. Boy, the media is making them famous. They're rock stars,
Right. Right.
Yeah, so keep it in perspective. There are other things going on in the world. How about telling us about some of the good stuff going on? Why does it if it bleeds, it leads. Why do we have to... Why? I mean, I want to hear good news. I like when a story comes on the news that's happy. Why does it always have to be fear and negativity and death and murder and rape? And guess what, media? We don't necessarily want to see that.
Well, can you imagine, al-Baghdadi over in Syria? I don't get it. My beheading video is not on CNN, and
I only got 5 likes on Facebook.
Right. Exactly. And that is part. It's part of what's going on. It's the Twitter action. It's the Facebook action. It's their videos getting out and getting, 1 million views and likes and the kids out there see that action. And these guys are like big.
They want a piece of it, yeah.
Right. It seems so obvious. It seems so obvious, and we play right into it. And the media does too. I had said, Marie, on this show, I said it about, I'm going to say it was 6 months ago. Seems like it's been a little bit longer. That I no longer was going to watch a beheading video or talk about it. I don't want to see it anymore. I don't want to talk about it. I'm going to ignore it and act like it doesn't happen. When they mention it on the news, change the channel. I see it on a website, I don't click. I don't want to know. I'm not going to report on it, and I haven't. I haven't talked about ISIS and said the word ISIS on the show until yesterday. Okay, that's it. Until yesterday, I had to do it on Coast because it happened on Friday and it was my job.
Right? Yeah, you kind of had to.
Yeah, but I haven't done it. I haven't done it in 6 months or a year. I just refused to go there. And
well, listen, that's a little quantum physics there because what the observer effect. What is observed when we observe particles? We can change their behavior by the act of observation. So if you kind of extrapolate that to the media, where we put our focus creates our reality. If you remove the focus from the crap and the negativity, guess what? Your reality shifts because you as the observer have said, I'm not going to observe that anymore. I'm going to now shift my focus here. And I think if enough people do that, the reality itself, the greater reality that we all buy into, that's going to change too. That's what I love about quantum physics. It's like, wow, we can almost describe human behavior that way.
Take
your focus off it.
I totally agree with you. And it's weird because when not only this show, but when I started, sportscasting, but with this show and the same view on the sports show was that I was not going to ever be negative. I don't want to be. I don't want to be negative with a guest. I don't want to be negative on thought, and I don't want to be negative in my opinions or reporting, because there's too much really cool things to talk about, learn, and discover. I would rather much spend my energy, spend my time on figuring out what's going on with the ancient Egyptians and Göbekli Tepe and Peru and Bolivia and the temples in Mexico City and the Mayan culture and the American Indians and time travel and the Apollo moon hoax. Let's go there. There's too much to learn and discover.
Those are adventures, and those are, excavating our own history as a species and really cool, fun stuff. And I know, things happen and you have to address them. Because I think if you don't, your listener's going to say, hello, are you aware of what's going on? Right. But you don't have to dwell on it, know?
And then as I moved along and I found out more and more the things that I was suspicious about my entire life, right? The things, the New World Order, the Illuminati, the Freemasons and black government projects and these things that I found out about in academia and how things are just twisted in life and reality wasn't, we're living in a matrix, how all of that applied to the theories of ancient Egypt or UFOs or the Kennedy assassination, and how all of it really, in a weird intrinsic way, it was all related.
It is.
I move along and I found, and then suddenly you have the negative narrative, the negative paradigm that is woven into all of these subjects. And you can go from UFOs to ancient Egypt and slap Kennedy's assassination in the middle and tie it all together. As a matter of fact, you can find the same people's names tied it all.
It's like the cigarette-smoking man in the X-Files. You know, that guy's everywhere.
Yes.
Or what was that movie, that Woody Allen movie, where the character was at every event that ever happened, like in history. Oh, gosh, I wish I could remember the name of it. Forrest Gump was that way too, but it's like you see the same person at every amazing world event, to the landing on the moon, and this and that. But I think it is all tied together, and I think the negative stuff, I don't know that it cannot exist. I think that everything is cyclical, and there is that positive, negative charge to every particle. Why would there not be to reality itself? And maybe we can't grow as and transform our consciousness without these horrible negative pushes.
I'm going to give you some homework tonight after the show. As soon as we're done here in a few minutes, this is what I want you to do. Do you have your pen?
Okay.
Okay.
I am getting my pen.
Okay, you're going to go and watch this video tonight, and I will quiz you tomorrow.
Oh my gosh, I'm back in school.
Yes, and this is the video.
Okay.
It's Peter Levenda, Levenda.
Oh, yeah, I've heard
you know
of Peter.
Okay. Go watch his video, The Secret Space Program from Amsterdam. The video was filmed in Amsterdam, and it's called The Secret Space Program. Now, go watch that video. In this video, he ties the same group of people back to the original Maury Island UFO incident in 1947, which was before Roswell and before Kenneth Arnold. It was the first UFO event. Those FBI agents that were there, those guys, he ties them to every significant event in our history, all the way up to the Apollo launches in 1969.
Wow.
He ties them together to Operation Paperclip. He ties them to Werner von Braun. He ties them to the Nine, NASA, JPL, L. Ron Hubbard, through the Kennedy assassination, and all the way to 1969, 1947 to the same group of guys happened to be, and J. Edgar Hoover happened to be involved with every single important event in American history. And I'm sure that's
happening now. It's just a whole new crew,
right?
You know?
and before you say, "Oh, well, that's impossible, Jimmy," you know what?
No, I'm not at all. Do I think that's impossible? I think there are handlers and people in power that call the shots.
So what are you working?
I wouldn't necessarily call them Illuminati, but we won't go there.
Well, at one time, apparently, it was J. Edgar Hoover. That guy he was everywhere, anywhere and everywhere. It was absolutely amazing. Okay, what's your next book? What are you doing now?
Oh, well, actually, I'm getting into writing and producing for film and TV, so I'm going to be doing a lot more of that. That was one of my first loves, is writing fiction and screenplays, and my next nonfiction will be, believe it or not, it's called Dark Angels, A History of the Devil, Demons, and Dark Angels.
Wow.
And it will literally track throughout various religions and mythology, and it's kind of creepy, but I think it'll be fun to work on.
I'm so there. I'm so there. And what are you doing for TV though? Are you writing a series?
Before I got into nonfiction, I was wanted to write novels, and I had written a bunch of screenplays, and I was when I was working at Warner Brothers, I was pitching and meeting producers, and then I started writing nonfiction, and it just took off. So I kind of stopped all the other stuff. A couple of years ago, I signed with a manager who is now getting me back into that world, and I am looking for projects to option that I will then write and produce or co-produce.
Are you and Larry writing the Angel book together, or is this you on your own?
No, I'm going to do that book on my own, but Larry and I we're also looking for projects to write and produce together. We have a screenplay. It was called 19 Hertz. It's now called Gridwalkers, based on some of the books that we've written. And we're writing another one. It's sort of science-based science fiction. We call it science faction.
Right on.
And it's really fun because, we write nonfiction, but you know what? Sometimes you really want to just cut loose and get imaginative and have fun, and yet also include a lot of the stuff that we're researching or that we have written about. So we're doing that too.
And did you tell Larry to start answering my email?
Oh, I will. You know what? I didn't talk to him today, but I will scold him for you.
Thank you.
I will. He's been going through a lot with his job. He works, I think I told you, cybersecurity.
Yes.
He'll be a great show. But yeah, he's been working like double overtime, and so I will scold him for you.
Yeah, thank you so much, and give my best to your son and your family and everybody else.
Thank you.
And thank you so much. It was a great conversation. Let's not wait this long next time, and let's not wait for a tragic world event. Okay?
It was wonderful. Thank you. Such a great time.
Thank you so much, Marie.
Good night.
Good night, Marie D. Jones. I was just looking over at Twitter, and where to go? Oh yeah, Mark Tarana. Is Marie awesome or what? That gets a retweet. I'm going to do that right now. Everything that is going down right now. I'm going to take a quick break here, but everything that is going on, as crazy as it is, it's great to get Marie on and ground us all. Pump the brakes on this truck. And you know what I'm talking about. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, and I'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Did you ever turn to your radio for your favorite talk show to find that it's been preempted for this?
In the air to deep right center. Back goes Lewis to the wall, and it's out of here!
Or this?
And I'm ashamed of you, Hillary, for voting for it.
Do you have a favorite talk radio program that's not available in your city? Just go to TalkStreamLive.com for links to the best streaming talk radio shows. At TalkStream Live, you will find live talk shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. All your favorites are here. With such a large selection, you will also discover some new favorites. On the go and still want to listen? With the mobile smartphone, simply type TalkStream Live on your internet browser. Now you can take internet radio with you. You will also find hundreds of music, news, and sports streams. Best of all, the TalkStream Live directory is free and there's never a login required. Remember TalkStreamLive.com, the fastest route between you and your favorite talk radio show.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back to Fade to Black. Looking at Twitter, Lynn over in Australia says she's got a wind-up radio. I have wind-up flashlights. I think that's even more important. Yeah. You know, I've said it before. I don't have a big collection of food, Rita and I over at the house, but we do have cases of cup of noodles. So in the event... We're going to be eating chicken cup of noodles for a couple of months. And you know what? We'll be the only ones with cup of noodles in the neighborhood. They'll be trying to break down our doors to get to our cup of noodles. Heavy shooting, yes, has been. Heavy shooting has been heard into the northern Paris suburb of St. Denis. This is according to BBC. I'm not getting any more updates, though. Police have been shot and wounded. And that's plural. So some police, I guess that's more than two. Would that be two if you use the word some? That's interesting. But this ninth suspect, all mentioned here, but nothing has been resolved. So that's all I really have right now as far as updates. And I wanted to say really quick, and I need to see this in Twitter really quick before the end of the show. What is yo? What is oi? What is this new state of consciousness? That what is it that hope you got a way to boil that water? Yes, I do. For the cup of noodles. Absolutely. You got to think through. You got to think through the noodles. You got to think through. You could probably soak them in water for a couple of days and you might come out okay on the other side. But what is yo that everybody's talking about in Twitter? And I think that's cool. Have the Fadernauts, has this audience figured out a new level of consciousness that we need to start working on? Yo. Will I be the Marshall Applewhite of Applegate? Is it Applewhite? Applegate? Applegate. Of yo. I'll write my book. Yo. The new collective consciousness of yo. I kind of like oi, too, as well. Okay. Little PSA, public service announcement right here on Fade to Black. antibiotic resistance. That's right. Which can turn a common ailment into a killer, has reached dangerous levels globally. The World Health Organization warned today, more fear porn, saying widespread misunderstandings about the problem was fueling the risk. Overuse and misuse of the drugs dramatically speeds up resistance, the WHO said, voicing alarm at the results of a worldwide study showing that misconceptions about the threat are widespread, prompting dangerous behaviors. The WHO's 12-country survey, which was published yesterday, found that nearly 2/3 of all of those questioned, 64%, believed wrongly that antibiotics can be used to treat colds and flu, despite the fact that the drugs have no impact at all ever on viruses. The survey, conducted in Barbados, China, Egypt, India, Indonesia, Mexico, Nigeria, Russia, Serbia, South Africa, Sudan, and Vietnam, also showed that 66% believe there is no risk of antibiotic resistance for people who take their antibiotics as prescribed. I thought that all of us were taught by our parents growing up that you can't take antibiotics for a cold or for a flu. I thought we all knew that. Now, what's funny, over at Casa de Church, strep throat, antibiotics. Go to the doctor, get a prescription. Get it? Strep throat will kill you. I get that. I understand. Well, yeah, it probably will in the end. But there are certain things you take an antibiotic for. Thankfully, I never have to take them. So when I take an antibiotic, I'm good to go. That stuff works after 2. Some people take that stuff all the time. I thought that this was ingrained in our mentality, that we knew that. But, yeah, can you imagine that the resistance, to some of these killer infections that are just is something that would just be wiped out immediately? You get a little infection in your tooth, and by the time you get to the dentist to get it drilled on, you're dead. Man. Yeah, antibiotics should just be illegal. I mean, in cows and chickens and everything, and you only get it if you're near death. And then maybe we can get things back on track. Now I'm going to leave you this nugget, my loving audience. Oh, I love every single one of you. Great show tonight. Twitter was on fire too, at JChurchRadio. Weapons were stolen from an Army Reserve Center in Worcester, Massachusetts over the weekend. Listen to this. The FBI said, and local police are searching for the weapons. Spokesman Kristen Satera said on Sunday they were found to be missing after a break-in at the Lake Street Army Reserve. The break-in occurred late Saturday, and the FBI, check this, did not say what was stolen. It's just gone. And they say that they've registered these weapons in a national database. Yeah, right. Thank goodness. This is Fade to Black. I would like to thank Marie D. Jones for an absolutely amazing conversation tonight. Do not, Marie, stop what you are doing, ever. Fade to Black's executive producers, Rita Kamarian. Shows produced by Hilton J. Paul, Mark D. Kovar, LJ3, Renee, Mark Dunbar, Jonas. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Dennis. You keep retweeting, brother. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vito, and Mark D. Kovar. Faded by Dale. Webmaster Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy. SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. Syndication, KGRA, The Planet. Tomorrow night, right here, Carrie Cassidy and Mike Barra and myself, a roundtable discussion on Paris, France, ISIS, and what is going on in the world right now. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2015 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. I want everybody to be safe. Go Backley Tappy.